Everyone, and welcome to Expert Talk with GNC. This is the sixth event that we are conducting in the lockdown. And again, we have with us Dr. Sunny Shah. So I welcome you, Dr. Shah, once again
Thank you.
to the GNC family and the GNC events that are taking place. And today, Dr. Shah will talk on a very different topic, and that is going to be management of pain during exercise and sports, because we all are very well aware that sports and exercise can lead to a lot of pain. How to ensure that pain is managed appropriately and continue doing with whatever exercises or sports we are doing. So to guide us on that topic, we have with us Dr. Tanisha. Welcome, Dr. Shah, again. And I would at this point also like to introduce once again Ms. Mruga Dholakia from GNC. She is a dietitian and nutritional expert. Over to Mruga.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vivek. So we have all met Dr. Sunny Shah, and those who are actually new to this conference, I would like to tell you that he was our first guest for this webinar, and it was a huge success. And I would also like to introduce everyone who doesn't know about Sunny Shah, a little brief about him before he takes over. So achieving an MBBS degree was never a stop for Dr. Sunny Shah. He is a vivid learner and has over the period of time achieved great knowledge in the field of nutrition and fitness. He is a certified trainer, certified coach in marathon training, and a sports physician graduate from International Olympic Committee, and that's not all. He's also completed postgraduate in healthcare management, and he has got more than 10 years of experience as a sports medical doctor. And currently he's working as a health and fitness consultant, where his main focus is to design customized fitness and nutrition plans for every individual based on their body analysis. So over to you, Dr. Sunny Shah.
Hi, Mruga. Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Vivek, for calling me again, and thank you, GNC. So today's topic is quite interesting. It's pain management in exercise and sports. A lot of people, when we are exercising, do complain of pain. A lot of them go through injuries. So today will be a mixture of a technical lecture plus in general also for the public to understand, like what is the mechanism, why the reason the pain happens, and why these injuries happen, and what we can do to prevent them. So I will start with the PPT directly. So I'll just share my screen with you guys. Okay, so pain management in exercise and sports. Okay. So basically, we see that today a lot of people do have injuries when they are training, whether they can be
marathon small in size. If you can enlarge it, because it is not that visible to the. Yeah, please enlarge it. Yeah, thank you.
I've enlarged it. Can you see it now?
Yes. Now it is visible.
Okay, so yeah, so I'll keep on enlarging it. So yeah, basically today if we go to see, there are a lot of patients who go through pain, etc. So actually a physical activity is an important need of today. We need to exercise at least 150 minutes a week to keep our bodies healthy, to keep our health on track. But doing exercise does come with some side effects. The side effects would be, one of them would be pain, which deters people from training, or it can be an injury. But if we go to see, most of the injuries, etc., whatever the side effects of exercise that happen, they are minimal compared to the health benefits that we have. So to avoid this, we'll see what all we can do. And these injuries can be as a result of either acute injuries or overuse injuries. So the pain that results. So I'll just start sharing again. Okay, so what are the types of injuries that can happen which can lead to pain in an athlete or an individual? There can be acute injuries because of which a pain can happen, or they can be because of overuse injuries. Acute injuries are the ones where a person complains of pain immediately, like immediately a workout has happened and a person will complain of pain. An overuse injury is where pain or trauma has occurred over a period of time, and it leads to again an injury, which would be again one of the first symptoms would be pain. So basically acute injuries are like, if you go to see, when does an acute injury happen? Acute injury happens when you exceed the load of what a body can accept. If you go to see, I've put up a graph across. So there is a deformation and a load. So when your load exceeds what the body can take, that time an injury happens, it leads to pain. So if you see the graph, this it shows 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. This is a ligament injury, which is very common. So a ligament injury, if you go to see, it can stretch up to 4% of the normal basic structure. So when you exceed that load, it leads to a plastic deformation, in which a first little bit of injury happens, which leads to pain. And if you exceed that, also a total rupture happens. Overuse injury is what we have seen today very commonly, especially with the type of sports that we are looking at. A marathon runner comes to you saying that I have pain in the foot or the shin or etc. But people might take it as an acute injury, but it is an overuse injury, because over a period of time when people are training, the injury keeps on happening, but it is below a threshold level for a person to recognize that they are getting hurt, and all of a sudden one fine day they come with pain inside. So if you see this graph, if you see, weeks to months it takes for the overuse injury to happen and the pain level. There is subclinical episodes of failed adaptation that we see on the graph. So if we see, like, today you have done a training, there is some micro trauma, but it is below the threshold level for the body to put it across as pain or as an injury. So such accumulation happens. And then all of a sudden, if you see the graph rises, where there is a definite tissue injury, and when the person realizes that he's got an injury. So this takes weeks or months to develop, especially most of the marathon runners who are having stress fractures today. So I've just put a comparison in this, if you guys can make out that acute injury is like immediate, and the overuse injury is over a period of time. Okay, when a tissue gets injured or leads to pain, what are the reactions that we get in the body? It could be like an inflammatory reaction, a proliferative, and so basically a injured tissue goes through the 3 stages. It is inflammatory, it is proliferative, and maturation. So basically inflammatory is the time when a person complains of pain, which is like we get the signs and symptoms of inflammation. That is redness, maybe in a joint area or wherever localized. The swelling sets in, there is pain, there's increased temperature, local temperature around where the injury has happened, and there is loss of function of that injured area. Then what are the mechanisms which it happens? If you go to see when an injury happens, there are certain chemical reaction that happens in the body. So an injury has occurred, the blood vessels come into play, they release various factors like leukotrienes and etc., which lead to inflammation. These are the mediators of inflammation. So blood platelet system gets activated, vasodilation, that is the redness which comes in. And then there is the white blood cell reaction, which is the immunity reaction, which helps to contain the injury. What can we do to prevent and treat these injuries? Basically, when you're in acute pain, basically one of the most first principle is to apply a price principle. Before even a clinical examination happens, we usually delay a clinical examination. When you come to me complaining of an acute pain, first of all, I will delay your examination by 30 minutes. Because first I need to apply a price principle. That is, protect the damaged tissue, R for rest, ice, compression, and elevation. And today in the new age criteria, we actually follow price to police. That is protection, optimal loading, ice, compression, and elevation. So this optimal loading is very important. Today I've seen like people coming in pain, or if they have got injured because of their doctors or something telling them, okay, you don't need to train, you need to rest. Actually, that is a wrong criteria. In fact, you have to do optimal loading to the tissue for the tissue to recover. If you see examples of this, of price therapy, like this is an ice pack which is put on, and then we see a compression bandage being put on. So then if you go to see, this is the elevation. In case the patient needs to be mobile, we give them crutches so that there's no loading on that immediately. Then there are certain types of elastic bandages and compression bandages which we get, for the price therapy to occur. These are ready-made. That's the horseshoe soft pad to when we are doing icing and everything, so we can keep it on for a longer time. Okay, this what I'm showing you is basically an acute injury. When you come to me in an acute setting, what if you have some overuse injury, like if you're into a cricket, your ball and socket joint, the round rotator cuff, etc. is injured. So first of all, we need to recognize what are the reasons why this is happening. So it could be because of quite various factors. It could be internal risk factors, external risk factors, or it could be your training plan. Okay, so internal risk factors, like it can be a malalignment of your certain bone or your muscle tissue or whatever in the body. If you have an uncoordinated neuromuscular control, that is your neuromuscular system does not coordinate. If your skill is wrong, or if you're too heavy a weight to carry out a certain type of exercise, especially the runners today, who are heavyweight and doing long distance marathons, etc. The external risk factors which can lead to pain and injury is your training surface. Suppose, for example, you're training on a grass surface and all of a sudden you move on to a hard surface which has gravel, it is going to lead to injury. Your weather conditions depend, like, what weather you're running in. If it is very hot, it is going to lead to pain and trauma further. The footwear which you are using, like whether you're using a padded, padded shoe or etc. for your running, or a tennis shoe, all these things do depend. Your equipment, like your gym equipment or other equipments which you're using, if you're new to the equipment or the equipment is not aligned right, it can lead to an injury. Your training plan also. So it is basically the frequency and intensity of your training plan which can affect your injuries, or it can lead to a pain. I will come on to that in later. So all these things can lead to an overuse injury which accumulates over a period of time. So what happens is, a lot of time a person comes in pain and the diagnosis is made, but we forget to take a good history. We don't realize that this injury has happened, the injury to the tissue has happened over a period of time, which needs to be looked into. The external, internal risk factors need to be corrected. Your training plans need to be corrected. An external risk factor, even important, in one of which is not mentioned out here, which we deal with, is our nutrition and your supplements which you're taking in, which help in supporting to prevent your injury. A very well said statement is, when you train too much or too often or too quickly and with too little rest. This is very important. So to avoid such type of pain or injury that happens, it is suggested that you increase your intensity or your distance or your surface or new equipment one at a time. All of a sudden, don't get everything together. Like, introduce one thing at a time in a week. Once you're adapted to it, go to the next thing. Increase your intensity of workout by maximum 10% a week. These protocols even the athletes follow. So average people do follow this. You need to give sufficient time to recover between your weight training days, your light days, your cross training days, etc. You should always keep a training log. So at least when we are looking at a history, a doctor can come to know, okay, whether this is really an acute injury or it is an overuse injury which has accumulated over a period of time. You need to monitor your heart rate, your weight, your sleep quality, etc. A sudden change in heart rate more than 10% is also not good. A sudden change in weight is also not good. Okay, how do we deal with these injuries? Basically, there are three phases again of rehabilitation. The acute stage, which lasts for few days to few weeks. The acute stage, which I just discussed before. The price therapy, that is protection, rest, icing, compression, elevation. There's a rehabilitation stage. A lot of people in our country, like most of them, on an average individual or abroad also, we see they get into a rehab stage, forgetting their training stage. A training stage is very important. Once you have done your rehabilitation, it does not mean you can directly go into, like, you're done. You need to have a training stage also, so that your overuse injury doesn't repeat. Our main goals of this is basically to return to normal range of motion. The range of motion, if it is not correct, again, it can lead to an injury if you don't have a full range of motion. You need to return to your normal strength. At least 85 to 95% of your strength should return before you're returning to a sport. Your normal, there should be a neuromuscular coordination. Basically, the coordination between your nervous system and your muscular system should be very good. Your aerobic capacity, very, very, very important is your endurance capacity, the aerobic capacity. Any athlete or an average, when they come to me or even abroad, when we are dealing with certain patients, what we do is we restore their endurance capacity first to 90 to 95%. If your endurance capacity is good, that is your aerobic capacity is good, your chances of injuries or recurring of an injury reduces drastically. So you need to focus on your aerobic capacity. So when you're having these rehabilitation phases, so you can't get back to your normal, every type of training, what we do. So there are various alternate forms of training. Like if you can see in this, this guy is running in a swimming pool. You need to get to alternate forms of training depending on what type of sport you are in. The injuries, like I said, you need to modify your factors. Certain factors are non-modifiable according to your age or your range of motion, what your strength is. There are external factors, as I said, it can be your surface, it can be new equipment, and there is an inciting event. Like especially we see the injury rates are very high in competitions, especially in sports like rugby, soccer, ice hockey, etc., or normal hockey also. Okay, so what do you do to prevent these injuries? Basically, there is a mechanism in which it's like a Haddon's matrix, how you apply to a car, a pre-crash, crash, and a post-crash. So these techniques need to be applied. Like, you evaluate the athlete, what his technique is, what his training status is, what is rehabilitation after, what you're going to make him go through. Basically, equipment factors, etc. All these things you look into. So when you're dealing with these pains and injuries, there is basically to prevent all these things, we get into a supportive treatment. The supportive treatment could be a drug therapy for acute injuries. It could be your NSAIDs like ibuprofen, Combiflam, Dolo, etc. A new modality of treatment, PRP, platelet-rich plasma. The advantages of it are not that great, but according to the scientific evidence, but people do use it anyways quite largely. Sclerosing injections are basically, putting an injection into an injured site to decrease the bleeding, etc. into the site. We could use cold and heat therapies, or we can use certain supplements like turmeric, boswellia, calcium, collagen, glucosamine, chondroitin, omega-3s, etc. In general, there should be certain preventive measures which can be followed to prevent injuries. Could be like a warm-up and stretching. It could be preventive programs. It could be like, you need to apply all these warm-up and stretching, preventive programs to get into your training program. Your training progression has to be recorded. The protective gear, like especially when you're playing certain sport, the pads, etc., make a difference. It should be a fair play, the rules of the game. And there should be periodic health examination and evaluation, which should happen on a periodic basis. So if you go to see, like, this is just an example of how we do it with the athletes to prevent injuries, like this is for a soccer player. So if you can like see, we have 3 stages. We part 1, part 2, part 3, and it progresses. And if you see that green, yellow, and red color, that is the level of difficulty. From one level to another level, we keep on making them go. These are just certain examples to prevent injuries, or if an injury has happened, like use of an ankle brace, etc. There are certain ankle programs when you have certain, like these are just examples, like balancing ankle, balancing exercises when you're getting into a rehab program, or 10 by 10, 5, 10 rule, like for 10 minutes, 5 times a day for 10 weeks. Certain knee programs. Again, balancing is very important. Certain warm-up exercises like hamstring stretch, etc. to prevent any groin injury, that is injury to the abdomens or adductors, anything that is the inner thigh muscles or to your core. These are for shoulders. Yeah. So that was just a brief of giving, what an injury is. Basically, injury is any damage to a tissue while training. It can lead to pain, swelling, inflammation, or a lot of reaction that happens in the body, which deters a person from training. So this was just an overview of the injury which happens, which leads to pain in an athlete or a normal individual.
Fine, sir. So, sir, I have a few questions before we reach out to the audience. So, I wanted to ask a few questions. The first question from my side is when you're talking about pain management. So, a lot of people, particularly in India, have a resistance to allopathic drugs. They have a desire not to take allopathic drugs.
Correct.
If I'm suffering from a pain, particularly a knee pain, and I want to get pain relief, I am not trying to take diclofenac on a daily basis.
Correct.
So, are some natural solutions, some natural painkillers which are relatively safer with the NSAIDs?
Yeah, correct. So basically, even we defer giving allopathic treatment for a long time because these painkillers, etc., on a longer time, it does have side effects on the body, especially the kidneys. So these allopathic treatments, the NSAIDs, the ibuprofens, etc., cannot be given over a long time. So what we do is we put a patient when, in case if that person is training from first, and we start giving him natural substances like turmeric, curcumin. So curcumin, as we know, is a powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. It prevents joint injuries, etc. So we give that in a dose of 1 gram in a day, or depending if he's training heavy, then we may even go up to 3 grams. Then there are certain roots like certain extract, Boswellia. Boswellia, it is, a lot of people will be surprised if you see that Loban, the Muslim guys who come and put that dhoop or Loban, Boswellia extract. So it is one of the best drugs to prevent pain and injuries in an athlete or a normal individual. So it is given in a dose of 1 gram. So it prevents osteoarthritis, it prevents rheumatoid arthritis, it prevents asthma also, and plus it has anti-cancer effects. So these are natural remedies which should be started when a person has actually started to train. But in case if the person has not been taken it and if he is already training, he can start at any point of time. And suppose if you come to me in pain, I will be giving you these natural supplements to enhance your recovery. I will try to, so 4-5 days I can give you a painkiller, but what after that to enhance your recovery? So I'll be giving you substances like curcumin. Curcumin is haldi. Curcumin I prefer in an extract form because natural haldi which we eat is just 3% of curcumin which is the active substance in the, to get 1 gram, we can't eat that much of haldi in the day. So definitely an extract is required. Then Boswellia, one of the best substances to, prevent osteoarthritis or inflammation of joints, especially rheumatoid arthritis or even any inflammation. So that also I'll be giving a patient like, at least 1 gram in a day to prevent his injuries or to prevent any injury occurring, any friction occurring, or to prevent any inflammation occurring. And in case that guy has come in pain, I'll be giving him giving him the substance to prevent further inflammation. So, and tamarind, as we know, it is a natural anti-inflammatory. But one warning when we are using Boswellia is for pregnant women. Boswellia we don't give to pregnant women because it increases the chances of miscarriage. So natural substances do play a part in it.
Okay. There's another question, doctor, regarding the joint injuries, because many times, many players, as a child, I used to watch Wasim, and for almost 2 years, he was not able to ball because of shoulder injury. So his joint was affected. So particularly related to joint injuries, One is, what is the main reason why these injuries occur, and secondly, what can be the measures which we can take to treat when such injury happens?
Yeah, so a joint injury, basically you need to understand the structure of a joint, okay? It is, a joint is largely made up of collagen, chondroitin and glucosamine, okay? So when we are dealing with a joint injury, it can be either because of a friction or because of an overload. Or, so when we are dealing with that, like especially the hyaline cartilage is the most damaged structure in it. Or it can be a ligament injury, which a lot of people are prone to around the joints, like around the rotator cuff, etc. So, like one of the most common causes would be an overuse injury, out like a repeated movement. Like for example, you said when you're walking for 2 years. So when you're walking for 2 years, but you didn't have any supportive therapy for it, like a supportive anti-inflammatory for it, like how I mentioned curcumin or a collagen or a chondroitin sulfate or glucosamine, your injury is bound to occur because your body cannot manufacture that. You need to externally supply it. And there could be other certain medical reasons also. Suppose a person is prone to diabetes, which happens a lot in our country. It can lead to stiffness in a joint, which can again cause an injury. So curcumin plays a good part out here because curcumin helps in decreasing the sugar levels also and maintaining the joint mobility.
Okay, so what is the role of these supplements? As you mentioned, there are a large number of chondroitin, glucosamine, hyaluronic acid supplements. Even collagen supplements have started coming in related to
Yeah.
joint support.
So yes, so exactly. So if you go to see, a joint is largely made up of collagen, okay, the structure of it. Type 1 collagen, type 2 collagen, type 4 collagen, or type 3 collagen. So a collagen supplement is very important because in a vegetarian diet, for sure you can't get collagen because you're not going to eat fish or anything, okay? So collagen is very important. When we supplement it with collagen, it gives that extra needs the joint requires because of the load which you're putting on your joint. Other supplements which we mentioned are glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate. The glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate act as a recovery supplement for the joints. So they are given usually at bedtime for, suppose if I'm doing a long distance marathon or if I'm doing a plyometrics or a functional exercise which impacts my knees or other joints, I'm going to use it as a recovery supplement so my recovery of the joint is enhanced. Boswellia, as I said, which we use it on a regular basis because it's one of the best natural, anti-inflammatory substance that we can get. And these all are supported by scientific evidences. They are there in the medical journals also. So definitely, and we have seen studies largely based on this. Even curcumin, haldi, which is one of the best substances to use.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so a collagen supplement does make a difference because a joint is made up of 60 to 85% of collagen. It can be a collagen type
Right.
1 to collagen type 4.
Right. So, yeah, thank you, Dr. Shah. It was very enlightening. We have with us plenty of audience and who would be keen to ask you a lot of questions. However, I would like hand over to Mruga, who would take
Yeah.
the questions of audience first.
Thank you, Dr. Vivek. Dr. Shah, I personally had one question for you. Since
Yeah.
we are talking about this supplements like glucosamine,
Right.
chondroitin, collagen, so definitely this is good for the marathon. What about the people, sedentary people who are facing joint pain? Can it be recommended to these
Of
people
course,
also?
it can be taken. Sedentary people or are also affected to joint issues because a normal wear and tear happens. To decrease the wear and tear happening in joint, these supplements should be given. I give it to most of my aged patients, especially curcumin and boswellia. So definitely, and of course, calcium also comes in. And in case if they are doing a lot of walking or something, or if there is pain, then we do supplement with chondroitin and glucosamine also.
So how long should we be taking a supplement if, for example, person suffering from a joint pain?
A minimum of 3 months is required for it.
Minimum of 3 months.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, doctor.
Yeah.
We have a question over here from Dipti Phandekar. In case of senior citizens, what care should be taken while doing a strength training, especially for a back pain?
Okay, so basically, as I was showing for a senior citizen, when we are talking about injury, okay, or back pain, first of all, the person needs to understand the root cause of a back pain, okay? Why is the back pain happening? So usually, if your programs are correct, like if you it's just a muscle spasm or something, we can just do an ice therapy to relieve the pain. But otherwise, just getting into a routine thing, she should start with a warm up, which should last for at least 15 to 20 minutes. So once your muscles are warm, you get into a different type, you get into your strength training exercises. You load your muscles, progressively over each week. So in a period of 7 to 10 days, for example, if she has done some back exercise with a weight of say 100 pounds, then if she has to increase it, she has to go to 110 pounds after 7 to 10 days. It is not the same day or just in 2 3 days that you need to load it with a more weight. You need to be progressive about it. And as I said, to prevent any kind of inflammation that is happening in the back, she could supplement it with curcumin. It is amazing anti-inflammatory, or even a ginger supplement would help to decrease inflammation.
Doctor, what about the diabetes? Like diabetes do suffer from a lot of sorry, not the kidney, the bone issues, especially starting with the joints. And it is a never going, it's slowly deteriorating their joints. So is there anything that if we take these supplements, will it have any interconnection or any worse effect on their medicines which they are
Yeah,
taking?
yes, of course. So this is very important. Certain supplements when we are doing, like especially Boswellia, does affect the sugar levels. Okay, sugar levels or any anti-inflammatory drugs which you are taking. So when we are doing these supplements, it's always best to consult with a physician or an expert on it. So he can guide you basically what your medicines needs to be adjusted. We need to keep a track of your sugar levels, because a lot of times the sugar levels do fall with these supplements. Like as I said, curcumin is used also in diabetic patients to get down the sugar levels. So, and as I said, Boswellia affects the sugar levels directly. So we need to, yes, definitely in a diabetic patient, we need to look into that. And for their bones, etc., if their kidney function, etc., is very well, we definitely need to supplement them with a calcium supplement.
Okay,
And
okay,
being an old age, you can even supplement them with glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate if they are not allergic to it.
okay. Okay, thank you. That's a great insight, Doctor. Okay, so moving on to the audience question. There
Yeah.
is one more question. I often get cracking sound in ankles and toes, especially after waking up. What could be done in this case?
See, basically, a cracking sound is because of what we need to evaluate. Is it just a normal dehydration because of which a crackling sound is there, or is it because of an inflammation which a cracking sound is there, or are we dealing with rheumatoid arthritis or something because of a cracking sound is there? So, just by without having a look at it or without evaluating it, we cannot say why there is a sound, crackling sound. A crackling sound usually indicates an inflammation or a swelling in a joint.
Okay. Okay. Other questions, Doctor. Can you please help us understand nocturnal muscle cramps, especially happening with senior citizens?
Okay, a nocturnal muscle cramp is very, something different. It can be due to various reasons. A lot of times, the senior citizens, if they are on a diabetic medicine or certain types of blood pressure medicines, it can lead to cramps, or it can be just simply a dehydration. So it depends. A lot of patients are also there on diuretics, senior citizens, which can lead to dehydration and it can lead to nocturnal cramps. So again, this has to be looked into why it is. Is it just a deficiency of vitamin, or is it that they are getting dehydrated, or is it because of one of the medications which they are taking?
Okay, okay. The next question, doctor, would be if we have long chronic pain in knees, does it indicate something though X-ray report comes normal?
Uh, yeah, a long chronic pain definitely indicates there's something. That is why you're having a pain. A normal X-ray would not always give you the entire picture. We have to do the clinical diagnosis. That is, that an examination is required, what the symptoms are, and then X-ray and MRI are just an add-on support to see if there is anything. They are not the final diagnosis. So physician has to examine why there is a chronic pain. It can be because of just an osteoarthritis, which is very common in senior citizens, or after the age of 45 also, or is it because that person was overtraining, and it led to an overuse injury? So it can be because of that also.
Okay.
So of course there is something going wrong. That is why you are having a chronic pain. Or X-ray always does not always give the full picture.
Okay. Okay. Doctor, I had one question. Like nowadays, we have a lot of marathons coming up. We have this small marathons. We have this
Correct.
state level or city level marathon.
Correct.
So, what precautions should we be taking as a lay person, as a sedentary person, before going for such marathons?
Yeah, so basically when you're doing marathons, okay, your training program needs to be correct. First of all, you're going to be running on a hard surface. So your external factors, which I showed as before, your external factors are very important. Like, what type of a surface you're running on, how much distance you're going to cover, what supplements you are on. Your supplements play a very, very important part, in your joint lubrication during this time and joint recovery. Your internal factors also need to be looked upon. What is your nutrition throughout the day? Are you meeting your protein requirements also? Are you meeting your calcium requirements? Then what is your body weight? A lot of things come into play. People get up one fine day and then they are doing marathons 3 months, 1 year, and all of a sudden, most of them either result in a stress fracture or a back pain or something or the other. Or they have bone and tone joints after 1 to 5 years, depends. But so they need to look at their entire profile, be it from their health to their nutrition to their training programs to the external factors, to an extent that you need to even change your shoes every 400 kilometers.
Okay. So a practice and a nutrition is very important.
Yeah.
Okay. We have one more question. What are the diets to strengthen the knee joints or elbow joints?
Diet, see, any healthy diet is a diet which strengthens your entire body. Okay, a diet rich in calcium or a diet rich in protein, everything has to come in together. Your omega-3s, etc., like fish oil, etc. If you're not taking any supplement, suppose naturally you need to supplement with healthy fats also for the joints, like omega-6, omega-3. You need to have calcium. You need to have enough carbohydrates. You need to have enough protein. Everything comes together. It's not like there is any diet for just doing joint and this thing, just one particular joint. It's your entire body altogether. An overuse injury, as I said, can lead to these pains like knee and elbows if you're playing a tennis or something, or if you're running. So it comes on the pressure points, on the loading areas. So overall, everything, your diet has to be right. Along with that, your supplementation has to be point on. And supplementation, I'm stressing so much on because you cannot get through that normal food. You need to supplement it to get that. Your body is not going to manufacture it.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, there are a lot of studies also which prove that our own diet cannot provide us the nutrients that we require.
Yeah, it cannot, because, for example, I need an increase of glucosamine and chondroitin because I'm running so much. How am I going to supplement it? I can't get it through eating shells or anything because glucosamine chondroitin is gone to shellfish. So I need to supplement it. Calcium, I'm not going to get through any other source, how much my body requires. Protein turnover is very high when you're exercising at this high rate because the breakdown is so high that you need to supplement it with a high quality protein again, where whey proteins come into play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other question was another doubt. When would we seek medical treatment for these spasms, like for the nocturnal muscle cramps which we are talking about? Can we consider that as a common issue, or is it something serious?
See, there are a lot of you cannot just treat anything and everything as a common issue unless you know your reports are point on. Okay, so especially diabetics and old age, if you go to see there are nocturnal cramps, it can be due to lack of exercise also, loss of muscle. Like especially last 2 months you have not been exercising, the muscles are going to cramp because there is muscle wasting happening. So there's no exercise. Your muscle also requires a stimulus. You cannot just consider anything normal. if there is a problem in a body, your body is saying there is something wrong. You need to look into it. It is not common nocturnal cramps.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Especially people who are diabetics, etc., they definitely need to look into it because their muscle wasting is quite high.
Usually the cramps that happens is usually in the thigh area, which most of us I think face, which is a nocturnal. So is there anything? I think that's the exercise that is required to control it, or it's
Yeah,
just
so if you're
exercise
looking
which
at the thigh, your thigh muscles are cramping or your back muscles are cramping, whatever area, you need to exercise that area.
okay.
So you need to exercise. First of all, you need to know your medical reports. If everything is right, you need to know your medication. And 101% you need to exercise daily to strengthen that muscle. A lot of times, just a muscle weakness can lead to a cramp.
Okay. Okay.
Dr. Shah, there is a question from my side.
Yeah.
This is regards to treadmill training because
Right.
people who are just obese and they start running on the treadmills. Is this the most appropriate way of training, especially for the beginners?
See, definitely not. Like with most of my patients, I tell them not to do a treadmill training. I prefer an outdoor training where your natural movement is matched. When you're getting onto a treadmill, the movement is incomplete. The minute you're stepping onto it, the movement is incomplete and your foot comes off. So that leads to a lot of injuries. Yeah, if you're training on a treadmill, suppose if you're doing an incline walk where you are on a slower speed, like suppose you're on a slow speed of 4 to 5, and your inclination is about 4 degrees or something. Yes, that slow walk is beneficial, but not a treadmill training. Like I'm against it until unless you are an advanced person, you have trained outside, and then you've got onto a treadmill training when your joints are very good and when your supplementation is point on. Otherwise, treadmill training is the last thing that I advise my patients to do, or even the athletes. We advise them the last resort to go to.
Right.
Okay. So, hi Ashimi Vora, you can help your questions in our chat section. We'll definitely ask for you. So, doctor, moving on, we have one more question. Usually during the pregnancy, you feel restless in the night, and especially the restless happens in the muscles or the legs. So, is it normal for a pregnant woman, or should she be taking any treatment for the same?
Yeah, so see, for a pregnant women, it is completely altogether a different thing. Their hormonal levels are different. The cramping can be due to various reasons. It can just be for them, or it can be just a hormone-related, weight issue, like that is hydration issue, water weight issue. Too much of storage of water can also lead to these cramps, or a loss of water also can lead to these cramps. So pregnancy related cramps are completely different. Like, that can be dealt with, like that is very common. Yeah. Yeah. So what the person can do is they can just do a hot pad fermentation, like dip their legs in a hot pad. It's a hot bucket of like warm bucket of water or something, or just apply a hot pad. So that settle it. So it's usually a hormonal related issue more than anything else, because the pregnancy levels of hormones do change.
Okay, okay. Coming back to the cracking sounds of some
And
joints.
yeah, one more thing, pregnancy related cramps can be related to your thyroid also. So pregnancy induced, hypothyroidism can occur, and that can lead to cramps. Definitely your doctor has to look into your reports, especially the thyroid levels.
Okay, so that's a good insight. So probably,
Yeah.
you can check your thyroid levels also if
Yeah.
it continues to happen every night. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. There is one more question on same or similar cracking sounds of some joints. So how much water per day is recommended to avoid that?
See, basically, first of all, water intake. Okay, you should normally take, as I said, like 3% of your weight. Like suppose if you're weighing 100 kilos, of course you're not weighing 100 kilos, but for example, just to make it simpler, so it's like suppose if you are a 100 kilo person, just multiply it by 3. Okay, 0.3. So that is 3 liters of water plus minus 500 ml. So what happens when the conditions are hot, like the summers, etc. You can increase your water intake by 500 ml. If it is a cold climate, you can decrease it by 500 ml. On a daily basis, that much should go in. So suppose if you're weighing like 80 kilos, so 2.4 liters plus minus 500 ml. And of course, if you're having any supplements like whey protein, etc., increase your water intake by about at least 600 to 1000 ml in the entire day. Like calcium, whatever supplements you're doing. Supplement requires an increased water intake anywhere between 500 ml to 1 liter of water.
Dr. Shah, there's a question. If there is a dancer and that person is getting knots in the same area again and again, that means that area has been overused.
See, if you're getting knots, a person is a dancer, getting knots is very common because that is like muscle going into spasm again and again. It is very common, okay? So it's, see, a dancer is always going to overuse his, muscles or whatever because that's his work. And he can just, as I said, he can supplement it with one of the substances to prevent that. Like it can be to prevent inflammation and all these knots happening. It can be an electrolyte supplement. It can be curcumin, which works very well with these knots. And another thing is he needs to actually go in for more than anything is a deep tissue massage, which relieves all the knots.
So what's the role of a foam roller here in such conditions?
Basically, a foam roller helps you release these knots. It helps in stretching the fascia, so which releases the knots. So when you're doing a foam roller, there's a pressure on that area, so it helps in releasing that muscle which has gone into contraction, the muscle fibers, in different places. It helps release that. There is a fascia on top of the muscles, which helps in releasing that. So foam roller basically works for the fascia more. So that fascia gets released and on the underlying muscle gets released. So foam roller is very, very good to do, especially after dancing or before dancing, suppose, or before any workout. You get into a warm-up, you do a foam rolling, you get into your workout. And once your workout is complete, you can again do a foam rolling. It helps in relaxing the muscle completely. It's one of the best techniques. Yeah.
Right. So there's a question related to this coming to my mind is regarding acupressure. So
Right.
there's another alternate substitute to pain management, which we are using acupressure, acupuncture. So would you like to talk a bit?
Acupressure, if it is done in the right technique, it is very helpful. Acupuncture, again, if done in the right technique, it is very helpful. It helps in relaxing the muscle, okay? We have seen amazing results with acupuncture, where the needles are inserted. Of course, the practice has to be safe with sterile needles, etc. It gives amazing results. Like, it relaxes the entire muscle and fascia. It is one of the good techniques, alternate treatments to do. It can be a part of your normal relaxation or therapy also, along with your deep tissue massages. One of the acupuncture sessions can be added on for health benefits.
The audience, we have covered all the questions. If you all have any more questions, please do write your question in the chat box and we will address it for yours. Dr. Sanisha, I had one question, like while we are taking a supplement, but what about the tea and the coffee? Because tea and coffee are something very much part of Indian diet.
Right.
And how good and how bad are they for our joints?
See, tea and coffee bad for joints. There is no documented evidence for it. Like, a tea is going to affect your joint or a coffee is going to affect your joint. In fact, coffee is known to increase your performance. Okay, so when taken in the right dosages, we use it with athletes to improve their performance because it increases the focus level, their alertness levels, etc. So obviously, the chances of injuries decrease. But one thing is that overstimulation can lead to an injury again if you overdone it. Yes, so but coffee and they are known to cause dehydration in certain people, and in certain people coffee is known to increase their blood pressure also. So if you're caffeine sensitive, then you avoid coffee and tea. Otherwise, it's not related to your joints. In fact, we use green tea for recovery of muscles and tissues and joints.
Nowadays, we have even green coffee in the market.
Yeah, green coffee, yes. Green coffee, again, we use it more for a weight loss and a stimulant rather than for training.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Vivek, we have addressed all the questions.
So there are a couple of questions from my side, Dr. Shah. Is that does protein intake play an important role during the recovery phase when you are suffering from an injury or something like that?
Yeah, see, as I say, like, protein is the building block for each and every structure in the body. So proteins are like, the structural building blocks, be it for growth, regeneration, your enzyme processes, like collagen is again a protein. So yes, a protein plays very important role when you're, recovering. In fact, a high protein diet, about 100 grams of protein per day should be had when you're recovering from certain kind of illness, even if from joint injuries, because it is required for your repair process. The enzymes that go into the joints for repairing, they are made from proteins. So it is quite very important.
So, but there's a reluctance coming from the people that if I'm not doing the workout, why should I take a protein?
See, basically, first of all, I don't know why you're not doing a workout. You should be working out for your health at least 150 minutes per week. That is not very something difficult to achieve. And even if you're sedentary, your body functions, each and every functions. It is structural block for the body. Like it is required for growth and repair. It is required for your enzyme systems, like be it your saliva or be it your digestive enzymes, whatever you can think of, your muscular tissue, your nervous tissue. These are the transport hormones. Even your, sex hormones like testosterone, they are proteins. You require protein on a daily basis for functioning. You are entirely made up of protein. So you definitely need protein. In fact, if you see CDC guidelines, that is Center for Disease Control and Prevention, if you see them, they recommend, in fact, 150 grams of protein per day to stay healthy. So your protein is very important. Even if you're not working out, even in sedentary person, you require at least 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram body weight of protein. That is, if you're weighing 100, you require 100 grams of protein in the day.
No, so my question was primarily, suppose say someone is a sports person and he is regularly practicing, but due to some reason he got an injury. So during the injury period, when he is not practicing or exercising, should he continue taking protein?
Of course, he should. As I said, it is required for each and every process. So he requires it for his normal process. And if you're injured or something, you require it for recovery. So definitely he should be continuing with his protein to enhance the recovery.
Sure. Thank you. So there are a couple of more questions. Muruga, if you would like to take them from the audience, there are two more questions.
Yes, sure. Doctor, we have one question from Ashumi Bora. Does a pain at one point of our psoas muscle can travel to our entire abductor and abductor and also affect area around our knee? If yes, then what?
No, what she's talking is more of a sciatica pain rather than a psoas muscle pain. Because psoas muscle is attached to the hip and the upper abdomen on the back. But I think she's talking more of a sciatica pain looking at that, because if it is traveling from your back till your knee, it is more of a sciatica pain than your psoas muscle pain. A muscle pain does not remain this long. You are unable to function if it is a muscle pain. Muscle pain is really bad if it is injured, and it takes a lot of time to repair.
So for sciatica, what should the person do?
Sciatica, again, one of the supplements, as I said, you could supplement with curcumin. It is a very good antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. You could do that. It is to have that. And so she could supplement it with that. Along with sciatica, of course, you need to strengthen your back, exercise and back and everything. You need to work on your muscles. Yes. Yeah, because what happens when you work out, the vertebral column, it stretches. So the pinch which is happening on the nerve, which travels from back till your knee, it gets relieved. And when you're putting in anti-inflammatory natural substances like curcumin, boswellia, etc., it releases the pain. So she's saying there's no sciatica pain. She's a dancer, something she messaged.
Yeah. So she's a dancer and she's injured her psoas muscle.
Okay, so basically then we have to rule out, then we have to do a rehabilitation program with optimal loading. As I started my lecture with, there's protection, there is optimal loading, there is icing of the muscle. So after each and every workout, she has to do a ice water bath, like that muscle area, the injured area, you have to do ice compression or do a ice water bath at a localized, in that area with chilled water for recovery. And of course, the other supplements.
So moving on to the supplement, doctor, somebody has suggested if you can suggest any curcumin tablet which you can refer to. Or is
See,
there any particular strength that they need to refer to?
okay, yeah. See, curcumin basically, first of all, there are a lot of products in the market, okay, with curcumin. A lot of them are just haldi filled in those empty capsules, okay. So it doesn't work like that. You need curcumin extract, okay, so which is derived from the haldi, which should be of a very high quality. And GNC, like, it is one of the best qualities, like, not just because I'm doing a lecture with you, but I have used it. We use it with our patients of very high quality. You can start, like, a minimum capsule of 500 milligrams is available in the market, but we use a high dosage to get the advantages. At least 1 gram per day is required,
Okay, 1 gram per
minimum of.
day.
So we go to 1 gram to 3 gram, and depending on what condition we are dealing with.
Okay, so 1
Either
gram.
it can be either it can be taken together, or it can be divided throughout the day. But a high quality curcumin is required because there are a lot of them flooding the market, and you need a very high quality curcumin to get the effects. Otherwise, it's of no use taking any curcumin capsule.
Okay, so 1 gram would be the active component, that is curcumin, and not the turmeric that we need to take care of.
Yeah. Yes, the active component. Yes.
Okay, okay. There is one more question, doctor. Why does my feet swell after sitting for some time in one place, especially during traveling in bus or train?
That could be a lot of reasons for that. Again, an examination would be required, whether his swelling is because of a local compression, or is it because of his blood pressure, or because of lack of protein, or whatsoever. These are things which can be ruled out on examination. Like, it can't be like swelling in the legs, can be even like you're suffering from some disease. It has to be ruled out. I cannot just tell you. And depending if you've got an injury in that area, previous injury, so the blood flow, like lymphatic drainage has come off. This needs to be discussed. It has to be met by a physician, discussed, and then I can give you the details. It's not like that.
Okay.
It needs to be examined. The medical history needs to be taken.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Shah.
Yeah.
I think we have covered almost all the questions. They were very interesting. Over to you, Dr. Vivek Sharma.
So thank you, Mruga. And I think the audience got the opportunity to talk about a very important. I can tell you, pain is the most important symptom as far as human beings are concerned. During my internship days, I saw a person, he was having a big hernia. So I asked him, ये एक दिन में तो नहीं हुआ होगा? So he said that it took around 6 to 8 months. तो मैंने कहा आप क्यों आए? तब क्यों नहीं आए? So it was this big hernia. He couldn't even wear a pant. So he said that जब तक दर्द बर्दाश्त हुआ तब तक मैंने चलाया और अब मैं फिर आ गया. So it was a government setting, so poor people generally wait till they have excruciating pain. And when pain comes, they generally try to. And pain is not
one
limited
interesting.
to. Please, sir.
Yeah, sorry. No, I'm saying one interesting thing is when pain comes, a lot of people stop training. In fact, people should train through pain, you need to evaluate and everything. Pain is there, but if it does not, become worse on the subsequent training sessions, you should train to that pain, because we need optimal loading for that. Yeah.
Fair enough. So just Doctor, just for Ashumi, she has asked one more question. How much protein supplement is ideal for a person who is physically very active? So we'll take it as the last question for today. So she is asking.
Physically very active is a very vague definition, but at least if you say you are active, I would recommend anywhere between 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per day, okay, through like whatever sources you are having. So, like, suppose if you're weighing about 60 kilos, minimum of 60 grams of protein is required. But with my patients who are weighing 60 kilos, with them I do around 100 to 120 grams of protein, because that much is required by the body, because what you're going to have, everything is not absorbed. And plus, as I said, we require about 150 grams of protein for a 60 kilo normal average individual to function properly. So yes, and through natural foods, definitely you can't get this high quality protein so much unless you end up eating, so she's saying 8 to 10 hours a day. So basically, she definitely requires about 150 grams of protein and should be supplemented with a very high quality protein like whey isolate of GNC. It's amazing, you know, like it meets your requirements also. One scoop gives you about 25 grams of protein. It's amazing. You could add about 2 to 3 scoops in a day. Yes, of course, in a phased manner. It is amazing along with your regular diet of eggs or, you know, chicken, whatsoever you are having, high quality protein is required.
Fine. So, Dr. Shah, thank you very much for your valuable time.
Thank you.
And I would also like this to take an opportunity to thank the audience who had patiently listened to our session and asked a number of questions. So that is really good. And I can promise you that we keep bringing in Dr. Shah with more and more topics. And I would request the audience also if they can share some feedback with us, what kind of topic they are looking at, so that we work on it and bring solutions related to those topics for you. So thank you, Shah. Thank you, Dr. Shah,
Thank you.
once again. Thank you, Yoga, and thank you, audience.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Please keep following our social medias on Instagram and Facebook to know about more webinars that we come up. Till then, everyone, please stay safe, stay calm, and let's enjoy this phase also. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.